Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of the D4H live stream series. I can already see there's lots of live viewers on here, and that's a great thing because you can ask questions as we go. Today on the episode, we have Grant and Kyle from the Search and Rescue South Africa, SARZA, who are going to tell us all about how they got set up, how they use D4H, and all about their response to the KZN floods. What I was going to do is, just before I introduce them, is to encourage you to ask some questions. You can say hello here in the comments. I'm going to type hello. We'll introduce everyone who involves it. There's Frank on already. Hey Frank, how are you doing? Remember, this is live. You can ask questions. It'll direct the conversation. I'll put the questions to the guys. Okay. Make sure you've subscribed to this so you get alerted to the next episode. Just press subscribe on whatever platform you're on. We're going out over LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Okay. So first up, we've got Grant. Hey, you should be coming in here. Hey, Grant, how are you?
Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning to everyone.
Thanks very much. You're right. It is 4:30 a.m. in New South Wales, Australia, 6:30 a.m. in New Zealand. Who's up early? East Coast US for 2:30 p.m. So not too bad. Okay. Grant, you are the chairman of Search and Rescue South Africa.
That's correct, yes. I am chairman of the Gauteng region in we call it SARZA. Everyone abbreviates us to SARZA, Search and Rescue
SARZA.
today.
Yep.
Yeah, and I'm the current chairman for SARZA for Gauteng.
Excellent. And I've got here in my notes that you were the field team leader in response to some of those large floods recently that we're going to talk about today.
Absolutely, yes. I wouldn't know if it was fortunate or unfortunately, but I happened to be selected as I took on the challenge of the field team leader to run the teams and manage the situation as a volunteer.
Well, that is going to make it a great discussion today. We've also got Kyle. Kyle is the vice chairman of SARZA, or SARZA, sorry. And you're going to talk to us about how you use D4H.
Yeah, so we'll introduce, I suppose the build-up that SARZA had to take on board D4H, and then, quite coincidentally, we're developing it within our organization just before the KZN floods, where our team responded to. So, we were training hard on the system, and then we had this mass disaster in the country that we were able to use it on.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I can't wait to kind of share that in the photos you've sent to just give a sense of the scale of what you dealt with. Let's introduce where you guys are at. I'm going to drop this down here. Familiar with, I do this every episode. We just look at where in the world. So obviously for people tuning in internationally, we'll just explain to people how far south you actually are. My only trip to South Africa was I had a business meeting just at the airport, and that was it. And then I got back on a flight, and I couldn't believe it was 12 hours flying south of Zurich. Is that right? It's something like that. It's huge. So for people it's really, it feels far south. For people, if you've not been to South Africa, this is way down, right? Yeah. So you're both based in Johannesburg.
Correct. Yes.
Where does Johannesburg sit in the country? How is it? It's not it is the capital, is it? Have I got that right? No.
So it's further north.
It's a political capital, right?
Yeah. So it's further north of the country. It's not. We landlocked pretty much in the Johannesburg area. We don't have access to too many waterways except for some of the bigger dams and lakes that we have in the area. But other than that, I would say we're probably the business district for South Africa. Us, the three main centers being Johannesburg, Durban, and Cape Town, I would say are the three big business districts where a lot of business is done in South Africa. So yeah, we're pretty much up in the middle.
And so SARZA is national, is that right? Tell me about the provinces you're in.
So there's 9 provinces in South Africa, and where we've got regions, 6 of those provinces, we've got units and regional teams that are based in 6 of the provinces, and that would be the Western Cape, that would be the Free State, that would be the Lowveld, that would be Limpopo, KZN, and then Gauteng. Gauteng is part of, or Johannesburg is part of Gauteng, yes.
And the floods we're going to talk about were this kind of region here. Have I got that right?
So if you zoom down a little bit, you can see Durban.
Yes.
In the middle of the screen. There we go. Yep. So that's pretty much from that area, slightly north and inland from the Durban area, is the flood area that we operated in.
Okay. Fantastic. So if people want to find you guys on the web, what are they looking for?
Okay, our URL is sarza.co.za, and that's SARZA, which is Search and Rescue ZA. Maybe I'll give you a quick background of where we come from. Originally formed in the 1980s, if I may. In the 1980s, we were formed part of the Four-Wheel Drive Club of South Africa, and that's when the Four-Wheel Drive Club started. We're in excess of 33 years old, and we had our first operations in the 90s, in the early 90s, 1990, around there. So we've been going for about 33 years now. We are a public benefits organization, so and we got that status in 2018, and we are most certainly a volunteer organization made up of many walks of life. So it's not just professional rescuers that do this for a living. We do have medical personnel on board, ALSs, doctors that do that as their normal day-to-day work, and then they join us as volunteers in the unit and bring along their skill sets to add to the value that we provide in situations.
What's the typical kind of incident for you guys? I mean, you started off as off-road rescue, is that right? Or correct. Doing certainly in the wilderness. And is it missing people? Is it floods? I mean, or is it everything? I mean, what are the types?
So I often get asked this question, and what I always like to say, we're pretty much generalists. We've got specialties and we've got skill sets within certain individuals, but as a unit, I would say we generalize in many skills. And the typical type of call-outs that we would get would be missing people, missing hikers, recoveries, international and national disasters. We've been called out many a time for our specialty skills in communications. We provide the good old-fashioned VHF quality and good high-quality communications when in national disasters, because a lot of the times when you get these national disasters, a lot of infrastructure is knocked out. So we bring along the communication side of it. Logistics, we rough terrain specialists. We can operate in rough terrain with our vehicles. We own all our own vehicles, self-kitted out as volunteers, and we train to be specialists in these environments.
So how many volunteers and vehicles do you make available?
So it all depends. As a lot of the members work during the day and they've got full-time jobs. So we've got a system that we've got in place where we'll put out what we call a code yellow. We use good old SMS. A lot of times SMS, there's a better chance of an SMS coming through on a low signal cell phone than a data line, as an example, instead of using WhatsApp. Yeah. We do use a combination of WhatsApp sometimes, but we put out a code yellow. We ask for responses from our members to say, are you available? And they come back with a code. If they status 1, means they're ready to roll now, they can come out and assist. Status 2, they generally put a time. I can assist, but maybe only after 5 p.m. tonight. Status 3, I'm not really available, but if you really need me, I'll make a plan. Status 4 means the vehicle's out of commission, I'm not in town, I'm away on business, etc., etc. So then the field team leader, whoever puts the call out, will then build a team. So for the bigger events and the bigger disasters, we get a relatively good response, anywhere from 15 to 20, 25 people with their vehicles. So and that's in coming out of one region. And then all the other regions, we put teams together as well. And then we merge in a central point and deploy.
What training does somebody do to join the team or to become operational?
So we've got a very strong, would say, military background. A lot of our founding members have spent many years in the military. So we do believe in discipline. We believe in a uniform. We all wear uniforms. And we follow a process when you come and join, and we have 2 induction evenings a year, the beginning of the year and the middle of the year, where we introduce SARZA to potential members that would like to come and join us. We give them the highlights, the lowlights, the expectation that we have of them, their commitment that they really need to make as an individual to become part of the team. And if they accept, they come on board as a newbie, as a new member. From there, they progress during their training process. And we have a minimum requirement that we expect of our members. We do a lot of the evening work in the evenings as theoretical training. And then we do practical training, hands-on, on the ground, on weekends. So we've most certainly got a minimum of at least 1 evening a month and 1 weekend a month as a minimum. But that minimum
And so what skills are they training in? I mean, I can guess there's lots of pieces just operating as a team, but are there formal qualifications that they have to get? Is there internal course that you run? You know, what kind of skills are those?
So we do have a lot of internal courses that we run. We've got a training officer. We run a full committee. We've got a chairman, a vice chairman, a training officer. We've got our communications officers. So the training that we put together is a lot of it's in-house, but we also outsource a lot of our training to professionals. As an example, swiftwater training, where we're not necessarily swiftwater specialists, but we need to be aware of the workings around swiftwater so that we can assist the professionals around that. Things like communications, map work, navigation, medical. A minimum as a wilderness advanced first aider is a minimum that we require from some of our members. And some of the members will take it even further. Other members come from that field and already got those qualifications, if not higher. From convoy driving, off-road driving, off-road specialists, our 48-hour packs, our 24-hour packs, where we pack gear and we learn how to utilize our equipment. So we've got a lot of internally developed courses that we've developed over the last 32 years, but we've also bring in a lot of the specialists to help us with specialist qualifications where we need certification, like our radio operators and our ham licenses, etc., because we need to follow a certain amount of compliance as well to be able to utilize some of these tools in the industry.
Are those missions, are some of them out in, in vast wilderness? You're into like a lot of space. Just give viewers a sense of the landscape, and when you head off road and you're on a search or there's someone missing, I mean, how remote does it get?
So, a lot of the space that we operate in, as we call our backyard, is mountainous area. It's not massive mountains like the Alps and things. It's what we call the Magaliesberg mountain range. But I can guarantee if somebody dropped you blindfolded in the middle of that range and open up the blindfold off, you probably wouldn't find your way out unless you've got some really good navigation skills. So what happens is a lot of the weekend hikers will go out on a hike, and we work very closely with a lot of other agencies like Mountain Search and Rescue and Canine Search and Rescue and the Water Wings, South African Police, etc., etc. So we do a lot of support for them, as in a force multiplier. We don't profess to be the professionals and everything, but we assist where we can with our skill sets to help them. Some of the areas on the bigger international and national callouts, we will end up in the middle of absolutely nowhere. No communications. There's no cellular communications. There's no infrastructure, no road infrastructure. 2019, Mozambique, Cyclone Adaya, absolutely in the middle of nowhere. And we need to make sure that we're self-sufficient. So we take everything in from our gear, our rescue equipment, food, water, everything.
Forgive my geography. Are you traveling over land to that, or flying?
So that particular one, we did travel over land. Some of the bigger missions where we've been with other agencies like the Official Rescue South Africa and Gift of the Givers, we've flown in. For example, the tsunami in Japan and the Philippines, Haiti. We've supported missions in Haiti.
Fantastic.
Where we'll have gear that we'll pack into a cargo aircraft and take out. And from that type of gear, we operate and we base ourselves with all that equipment, ensuring we've got enough food, water for the length of that mission.
What kind of equipment do you keep? I mean, you've talked about people's personal vehicles. Is there a sort of organization-owned equipment as well?
We do have organization equipment. So one of our standout pieces of equipment is what we call our mobile command post. That's MCP. It's a big trailer that's been developed and redesigned over. This is probably version 4, and it was designed by a subcommittee of members. We've got some very clever engineers in our midst and part of the unit. So we designed a mobile command post that we utilize. In there, we've got some capital equipment that we utilize, AEDs, defibrillators, and some bigger pieces of equipment that, as a unit, as we get funds in from donations, etc., we'll purchase that, like the titanium stretchers and the litter wheel and those types of things, which we'll keep. Some businesses have sponsored warehouse space where we can keep it, and we manage it obviously all through the D4H system, where we itemize everything. We know what's coming in, what's going out, and who's allocated what piece of equipment. So we do have bigger pieces of equipment that we utilize, what we call crocs for swift water type rescue. We utilize some equipment from other agencies that have donated to us and loan us equipment. And then all the members' own personal equipment, which is pretty much everything they can fit into a very highly modified vehicle, four-wheel drive.
And it sounds like there's a cost to all of this for sure. Are you fundraising? Do you have any funding sources? Members obviously provide a lot themselves by the sound of it.
Yeah. So the bulk of the equipment is provided by the members. They, as volunteers, we want to make sure that we've got, and it's a terrible thing, as new pieces of equipment come up, we always want to buy something, but we do rely heavily on donations, and there's some corporates that have donated funds to us. We're terrible fundraisers, I must just tell you that. There's other organizations out there that do a far better job than we do, but we get by. And from the funds that we do raise from some of the corporates, that's what we purchase our specialist equipment with, and our larger, bigger pieces of equipment. But we are not great at fundraising. So it's been a mission this last couple of years to make people aware of who we are. And surprisingly, we've had some lovely donations come through, and especially now when we've got this type of exposure, and with the KZN floods, we've got some DHL. Everyone knows DHL. They made a big sponsorship for us, and Heal the Land is some organizations that have given us some funding, which then theoretically can cover fuel and incidentals and food for the missions and things, which is great.
It looks like DHL sponsored your uniforms.
Does it? Oh. My wife often says to me, I look like the petrol attendant. So, but there's a reason for this uniform, and I can assure you, when you with multiple agencies and the type of how we like to be force enablers, it stands out. And the navy blue at the bottom is when you're wiping your dirty hands on your shirt, and then the top, the yellow bit, is you're visible in the mountains and the bush. We do stand out. So
excellent
uniform, and it brings people together. That's fantastic, actually.
Kyle, you were going to talk to us about how you took D4H, and I think you started with one of the 4 products, and worked from there.
Yeah, thanks, Robin. So yeah, in 2019, we identified the need for a similar system, and we subscribed to personal training and equipment management, and we really got a lot of use out of it. Obviously, it was a time and a process that our organization went through to roll it out within the organization and to get buy-in from the rest of our members. But we really started to see the benefits of it, and the value that's really managing the data that was being stored within the system, and the value of it. So that was really the start of our D4H journey. And then we hit the dreaded COVID in 2020, and we sort of had to look at our costs and what we really needed and what we didn't need. So we didn't pursue taking on the other applications. But then as we came out of COVID last year, 2021, our funding started opening up a bit more, and we looked at taking on the incident management. So we had a large aviation search and rescue exercise with South Africa's ARCC, so the Aeronautical Rescue Coordination Center, that's responsible for aviation incidences in South Africa, or missing aircraft, who falls within the Departments of Transport here in South Africa. And so we had this mass exercise, and we thought this would be a great opportunity to trial it. So we trialed the incident management. And, from that, we could see a lot of similarities in how we would normally run our instances. And, one of our biggest strengths is our communications and logistics, and then that always rolls out into incident management or RCS systems. And so we really started to see the value of incident management. So a few months after that, we had another large training exercise, a urban search and rescue exercise. I think it was a mass casualty exercise, like 60 patients. Yeah, that was a scenario, and then again we're able to fine tune us using incident management and really customizing it for our needs, and then also using the built-in forms and systems that it came with. And coincidentally, we had a few of these training exercises right before the large floods that hit KwaZulu-Natal earlier this year in April, and we were in a position where we could roll out incident management quite comfortably within the greater organizations that we were working alongside with, and then we're able to provide a really well structured incident management platform within the organizations that we're working with. So, that really was the background to us using D4H and where we got to now. And I think we are obviously still learning the system, and really, I think, starting to master it and customize it a lot better to suit our organization, and I think also just getting that buy-in from the rest of our members and taking it forward there.
I've a couple of photos here just that you've sent on of the scale, and this is the KZN province. Is that the right language or the right way to say it? And these floods that came through. I mean, can you give some statistics? My mind was blown away on the scale of these floods, or the damage done.
Yeah, so Grant, I don't know if you're going to go through that or if I can, but I think it was just under 500 people that the deaths that were experienced, close to 40,000 people that houses were affected and were displaced. So the damage was vast, and we're talking about really high class level of infrastructure, similar to if I compare it to the UK national highways type standard of infrastructure, highway network that was damaged, to your provincial road network, to your local municipal network. So the damage was really, really vast, and I think Grant will also unpack a bit of some of the reasons and how our teams then got involved with that.
Absolutely. What was interesting, there was probably three main areas that we operated in. And to anyone that's from South Africa that's dialing in, it was the Ananda area, Reservoir Hills, and Hillcrest. There were multiple other sites that we attended to, but those three main areas we tend to go back to on a regular basis. And the area we're talking about is often referred to as the Valley of the Thousand Hills. It's very hilly. It's dense urbanization in rolling topography and hills, so plenty of hills up and down. And the floods and the landslides that took place at the end of the wet season and the end of the rainy season was catastrophic. And the scary thing for us was that, often we've been on quite a few international calls and missions, but this was in our backyard. This was on our home turf. It was a little bit more close to home. It was a bit personal. So when the team start mobilizing, there's a lot of passion and drive and energy to try and do what we can do and to provide additional resources and services to the already stretched rescue teams that were on the ground.
Can you talk a little bit about where? What are we looking at?
So that is a container shipyard where the national highway, it's called the N2, the National November 2, which was flooded. You can see some of those containers with the wind and the water. As the water subsided, they were more exposed, but a lot of those containers were washing down the motorway because of the flood water that came through. It took them out of their storage areas and washed them everywhere, down the national highways, on the along the roads. They pushed them over, etc. So a lot of infrastructure was damaged, and a lot of road infrastructure was damaged. Roads had to be closed off for a period to make sure that no further incidents would occur. And this is after these pictures were taken after the water had subsided, so you can see a little bit of the damage there. But I mean, a big container like that floating down the motorway is not a normal occurrence. So there was a lot of water that came down in a very short period of time.
So you guys were tasked to this, or you were called into this, and you responded. And I can see your team members here. It's pretty clear with the uniform, as you say.
Yeah.
What was your role at it?
So we were tasked by Western Cape Disaster. So KZN, obviously as a province, reached out to the other provinces within South Africa, and Western Cape said to them, "No problem, we will put together a team." The head of disaster management in the Western Cape, Mr. Colin Diner, reached out to us, knowing of our past and our history. We've worked together in the past, and asked us to put a team together. And we pulled a team together from 6 of the 9 regions, where just about every region that we've got a presence in, we've pulled members out of to make up the team. And we mobilized, and as well as the City of Cape Town Search and Rescue Fire and the firefighters, there was a team from them. There was team members from Gift of the Givers. There were team members from within the SARZA camp that all merged together and headed down towards Natal from the time we got the notification. And our initial tasking was to support Western Cape Disaster Management for them to go and assist with the KZN floods. So on arrival, we ended up starting as a starting point at the KZN Disaster Management Center, where we were briefed and tasked and given our taskings. And we went down to the area where we would be based for the period of the operation, which was the Virginia Airfield along the Natal coast, very close to the city center of Durban, where all of the other agencies. So bearing in mind, as a volunteer organization, we theoretically are not in charge and not in control. South African Police were managing this incident. Incident command was run by South African Police, and you'll see in one of the pictures where you'll see our trailer in the background and our mobile command post. A gentleman by the name of Dave Steyn, was the incident command. He's a warrant officer from South African Police, and he managed the entire incident. We go down as a force enabler and as a supporting mechanism. That particular picture there that you're seeing on the screen now is so initially it was still a regional disaster, but the South African government then declared it a national disaster. And then all of the premiers and all of the people from all the different provinces started rolling in and wanted to understand what we were doing. So what I was doing there is, that's the premier of KZN, and I was giving him an update of the calls for the day. So we're very fortunate in the sense that the platform of the D4H platform, incident management, we can capture all the updates, all the logs, the movements. We monitor the movements of the teams, the members out in the field. We've got live weather reports coming in, tracking reports, etc. And we were giving this gentleman an update of what was happening in his area in terms of the KZN that he's the premier for, and he was also being updated as to the number of recoveries, etc., and what was happening to date. He would typically first go to incident command being from the South African Police, and then because of the capability that we brought on and the tools that we brought into the mix, everything tended to then rotate around or come around what we call our mobile command post and the D4H system. It provided an immense amount of value because of what we could demonstrate, what we could capture, how we could keep people updated, etc. So
you are lucky. You've only just implemented this right before the floods. Is that by the sounds of it from Kyle? It was a couple of exercises, and this was a pretty big deployment for it.
Absolutely, and we're still learning. And as the more we use the system, the more we utilize it in the field, the more value we're getting out of it, and the more features we're coming up with and we're seeing and things like that. That particular photo there was the general of the South African Army and Air Force, and we were giving him an update. And as all the dignitaries started coming through and wanted to understand what was happening, they came straight to the system and we demonstrated all the capabilities. We demonstrated all the logs. We showed them all the logs of everything that we'd captured from the time that we'd been there. And then the incident command then starts sending everything through to us in terms of capturing of information, etc., etc. So we became the central hub of information because of what we've got there. That is a lovely picture there, and on the screen.
Yeah, this is my favorite photo I've seen in a long time.
It's so that is on the one side. So our mobile command post is made up of 3 sections. On the one side is what we call our JOC, or our command post side, which is where all the operations happen. So you'll see on the left-hand side, you've got radio communications. We've got our big screen up there where we capture data and we display all of the data on the D4H system. You can see the screen has been split up there. We've got live tracking data, so we know we've got tracking devices that we give to each of the teams. We understand where all our teams are at any one time. We know where they are, and if they're not returning, we know where to go look for them if something happens. We stream in lots of live data like weather movements, temperatures, rainfalls, etc., etc. So it's a wealth of information. It all revolves around the D4H system. In fact, the gentleman on the left-hand side there, that's Dave Stain. He's the warrant officer who was the incident command. He spent a lot of time with us, and he utilized the system a lot to his benefit, which is fantastic, because that's what we're there for. We want to help. We want to be an enabler and give them the ability to use this information, which we then reported on a daily basis. We fed information back into them, which they utilized to spread out to all the officials that needed this information.
Fantastic. So when you have a D4H and you use it in a disaster like this, I love asking people, what would you like to change in it, and what would make it better? And I can guess already. I can see you've got a couple of other tabs open, and there's live tracking, and is it weather maybe or something like that?
Yeah.
And I'm guessing those things are part of your answer, but maybe you could talk, and Kyle, what else you see that would be useful.
Yeah, thanks, Robin. I think, you spot on the live tracking. I think would be amazing functionality within the system, and I think that would go as far as to include just normal tracking of people's cell phones or the app-based application. Also to integrate with InReach, obviously like Garmin products or Spot products. And I think, it could even be as simple as just importing live KMLs into the mapping functionality. I know a lot of people would find that, and I'm talking to our organization specifically, where obviously you limited to a good quality internet connection, but we're very fortunate that we've got a donated VSAT system, so we can actually deploy anywhere with no internet or no normal GSM or
is it that satellite when you're saying VSAT, is it?
Yeah, we've got a VSAT, so it's internet link via satellite, which, so we're very grateful for that donation. So we look at things around the limitations, and then how we can build on what our resources and capabilities are. I think just some other quick things is just, a simple way to share locations from people's cell phones, or within the app, where you guys can just ping or drop a pin, for example. What we found on this specific incident or mission that we had, people were taking photographs of their coordinates of their GPS and sending it in the live updates, which works. But to have someone drop a pin, for example, in the updates or something, and then link it to the mapping functionality, I think that would be very, very useful. So I think that's probably one of our biggest things. Other things that would be amazing to see is almost like a live attendance register. So currently how we run our attendance register is a typical Google form. We print a QR code, we share it amongst everyone that's there, we stick it up outside our JOC, and we tell people just go scan the attendance register, and it prompts people like what their skills are, what organization they're from, all the sort of normal information that we'd want on an incident like this. But I think to somehow integrate some functionality like that within D4H, then it's all in one platform, one system. I think that would be quite a powerful tool.
Are those people scanning that part of your organization, or these are from any
Any organization. So
organization.
normally, so if we run in an incident, we'd then typically, or if we're involved in an incident, we'd almost by default set up an attendance register, ask people to register who they are, what organization they're from, what skills they bring, just really good due diligence in how we track what resources are in a scene, and I think to have some sort of functionality where you can live scan a QR code from someone that doesn't have a D4H account and just populate what their particulars are, that can be a set of predefined fields, I think would be very powerful for us.
Excellent. So I can talk a little bit about what we're planning on that. So the status boards. I think you can see it here on the left, where you'd see the different boards. We're going to build the ability to do the share by public link option. We're going to have it so you can share by public link, but it'll be a one-time submit into that status board. So I think it'll be exactly like that. You could generate a QR code from it, scan that. It'll open up in a web browser. You don't need to be a user. You're able to fill in the fields that you've chosen on a form, and it'll submit it into that status board. So you'd end up with a status board of all of your registered people. I assume that would fit that.
Yeah, definitely. I think that sounds very exciting, Robin. Yeah, Chish.
Yeah, great. So that's coming. And then you were talking a little bit about location. We're going to add location. At the moment, I should be clear that you can, if you go click into a location field, it'll jump to the position of the device you're using initially. So you can fill in a singular field with the location. But for tracking people on an ongoing basis, it doesn't do that at the moment particularly well. We are going to add location in. I think there's going to be two main stages to it. The first is to add it from our own app. So it'll be when you're using the app, do you want to share your location? Yes. And you'll appear on the map if you opt in. The second thing will be to then build adapters to that so we can take it from other sources. So like you're saying, from the InReach devices or from whatever it might be. Now we have to work through those devices one by one to make them compatible. So I would say we'll probably do some generic adapter first that anyone who's techie enough and can hook it up can send their data in, like a KML feed, like you're describing, or then we'll do some specific ones to providers. So that's our planning around that.
Yeah, that's exciting. Thanks. Excited to see those updates.
Yeah, for sure.
Robin, also what happens is when we end up at bigger events or missions like this, you tend to work with multiple different agencies, and everyone's got their own little way of doing things. And as an organization, we need to be able to adapt to all of their ways of operating so we can make life easier for them. So we typically use our GPSs and our navigation devices, and we use coordinates. But if we're working with another voluntary organization that's not as well organized, and they say, no, just send us a WhatsApp pin drop or a location or whatever the case is, we need to be able to adapt to all of that and be able to cater for that, to be able to share the information with everyone. So hence why we all revolve around our D4H platform, because that information can be shared now. Where in the past, the individual teams out on their individual taskings only knew what was happening in their space. Now that they've got the app and the mobile app of D4H, they can see what's happening in the entire mission and potentially create or add more value if they see something that pops up and they could say, oh, hang on, we passed that place a little bit earlier. Don't go down that road. The bridge is washed away, as an example.
Yeah.
So it gives visibility to everyone in the JOC, the Joint Operations Center, and the Incident Command, as well as the individual teams and team leads in the field.
Excellent.
Fantastic. Yeah.
So these photos are great, and it's fantastic to see and get an insight into what you were experiencing. I think I've gone through a lot of them here. If there's anything particular that
one thing I've got to add in terms of the teams, and you saw a picture earlier, we were briefing in the morning. So every morning we'd have a briefing, and all the different role players and agencies and organizations would get together. And then the incident command would say to us, right, we're going to be splitting up into teams, and everyone merged. So we'd have SARZA members in a team. We'd have K9 search and rescue members in a team. We'd have K9, the South African Police divers in a team. Then we would have some of the other voluntary organizations in a team. We'd have and each team was allocated a field team leader, and that was all tracked and managed and through the system, through the D4H system. So every morning there would be a briefing. We'd put all the teams together, and throughout the course of the day, if we needed to move those teams in the field to different areas or different locations via the communication channels of radios or cell phones or whatever the case is, we then move those teams around based on information that was coming in from the public, based on information that was coming in from the command and control centers and the phone calls and the emergency lines that were set up. And those then would be distributed to all the teams out there. And then in the evening, we'd all get back together at the Virginia airport and we'd debrief. So if there was anything major or anyone got hurt, and that was run by the incident command. And we were very fortunate as well. I've got to mention the ladies from the Durban North community were absolutely fantastic. They'd rallied up food parcels and refreshments and water to feed the canines, to feed the rescuers, give them a little pack of maybe an energy bar or some food or a bun or some piece of fruit they can take out with them during the day. And it was all done through the community from donations that were brought forward. So when something like this happens, it's human nature kicks in, and that compassion kicks in, and everyone pulls together from walks of life, from all the different communities, as long as you can manage it, so that some of the volunteers that have got no experience don't become part of the problem, and hence why we run everything through the system. So we've got control. So command and control, know what's happening, and we know where all our resources are, we know where all the people are, and then we'll put people in with the teams based on their experience and obviously the stuff that we gather from them during the registration process or while they signing attendance registers, etc., etc. So everyone made up of multiple different agencies and teams is the success of what happens on big missions like this.
Were there any lessons learned from this? I mean, from you guys, and particularly around how you operated as an incident command post, how you coordinated people? I mean, you've talked about little bits and pieces of them, but is there anything that next time will be different?
So, human nature, anything new, there's always that challenge of, do I have to use it? Can't we just go the traditional paper-based one? I'll call through on the radio, or I'll send you a WhatsApp. So in our teams, we had some challenges with members not wanting to necessarily quickly default to the D4H system until they started seeing the value. Once they started seeing the value, then it's almost like the lights went on and eyes opened up and they go, wow, hang on, now we've got some real visibility. We've got some real information at hand that we've never had before as individual team members or operators that are out in the field. For our perspective, the customization of a lot of the forms that we've adapted and used based on some of the principles that we follow. And we've built those forms into the D4H system, which are there readily available for the next time use. And then, scaling up the what we call the joint operations team, the JOC team, because it's not your same old traditional old school system of the radio goes off, you log it and you write it down. We're now capturing something on a computer that's feeding into a cloud-based system that everyone's got access to. So we've changed the way we operate our incident commands now, or our JOCs, because we need more resources to capture and to do the planning and to do the radio work. So it's no longer one person that can do it all now. It's a team of people in that JOC. And that's a big lesson for us, is to scale up and make sure that we've got all the resources accessible to input the information. Because if you don't input the information, and it's with a typical old saying, junk in, junk out, you've got to make sure that the information is correct and up to date and accurate, and you feed it into the system. So, and then another big thing for us is we need to be very cognizant of the sharing of private information. So there's some stuff out there that certain people can see and not everyone can see, as an example. So when we're bringing volunteers or other agencies onto the system, big thing that Kyle showed us was that you can actually give them there's certain privacies that you can allow them to see certain stuff and not everything, because there's sensitive information. And for us, that was a really big learning for us to be able to restrict the amount of information that goes to everyone.
Yeah, set up the permission profiles. Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, that's brilliant. And I bet you've lots of people reaching out to you now asking for your advice on how you did this, how you configured it, how you became such a central part of this response to the KZN floods. I mean, quite amazing.
One thing I'm going to add, if I may, as a last point, just from our side, there's many systems out there, but why weren't they being used? And yet, what we've managed to do with the D4H system, and I don't want to blow our own horns or anything like that, but it's a system that is really simple to use as long as you start using it and you become accustomed to it. And it shows so much value, and it provides so much value and so much information for everyone. So we're ecstatic. We're really thrilled and fortunate to be using the system for our benefit and for the benefit of everyone we go and help and assist with.
Well, that's fantastic to hear. Our mission as a company is to 10x the effectiveness of your emergency response. And we say that wherever humans go, and the fact that we have made an impact on the floods in South Africa is amazing to us. So that's great to hear. Kyle, Grant, thank you very, very much for joining me on this. Stay online, stay on here. I'm going to drop off this live stream and we'll have a quick catch up. Thanks again.
Cool. Thanks, Robin.
Thanks,
everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, everyone.